trying to see some positives in this one. I'll be the Max to your Grinch on this particular topic, but the one shining light, if you can call it a shining light, really, is that it seems that direct employed staff are declining faster than self-employed. And if you want to see, and I'm really, really clouds, silver lining, straws, trying to really hold on to them here, but we've got a load of self-employed people, skilled, passionate about what they do in the main, that are in the industry, and we should be looking after those people in whatever way we can to keep them in the industry, and for them to build, if they want to, excuse the pun, but build on their company, grow their company.
Mr. Sumpton, episode 94, as discussed off mic, we are closing in rapidly on the centenary. I wanted to double back on last week's episode, mate, because some audience feedback, and while we're doing this performance review, there's some good and some bad. Good news is people listen to the whole podcast. I think I mentioned it last week. I was at the Constructing Excellence event at the People's History Museum last week, which was really, really good. And I had a couple of people pull me there to say, loving the podcast.
Nice.
Yeah. So into the way that we're approaching it and the topics picked. Slight bad news. There's no ending to last week's episode. It kind of cut off abruptly around the 20 odd minute. I think it was as I was getting into my diatribe, in fairness, that became the clip we use for promo. So people have probably seen the whole thing, but at least we know people are listening to the end for them to notice that. So
that's true. So for full transparency, I do the most of the post-production on this, so that's fundamentally my fault. So I'll go back, and anyone that's listening, if you want to listen to episode 93 and hear Ryan's diatribe, I'll sort it out once before this episode goes live. So as you're listening to this, go back to 93, around about 20-minute mark, and you'll hear the rest of it. Okay.
Go back through all of them.
It's
all quality. Get back through the entire back catalogue, eh?
Yeah.
How things otherwise, mate? You okay?
Yeah, I suppose we're in December, so is it too early to say Merry Christmas? I don't know on these things. What's the etiquette?
I don't think it is. I think given that you and I are both dealing with chocolate-laden toddlers with advent calendars, that you probably need to get into the Christmas spirit early, otherwise it would be unbearable, wouldn't it? So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so let's start with a Merry Christmas to one and all, and let's move on to more important issues.
Well, I think let's extend the Merry Christmas to Andy Rowe, who we've mentioned on this podcast previously, the chair of the Building Safety Regulator. And the last time we discussed him was a not so merry meeting that he had with the I think it was a Common Select Committee, wasn't it, on sort of progress that the BSR was making, particularly around Gateway 2 approvals under the Building Safety Act, which didn't look too clever. And I think the thing that we picked up on was quite what felt at the time quite a bold proclamation that the historic backlog on Gateway 2 approvals would be cleared by the end of this year, which just given the rhetoric around it and some of the numbers being discussed, just felt impossible. But again, I don't know if you want to jump on here, but some I found quite shocking, but in a positive way, some really good news this week on the numbers that have been reported for October.
Yeah, for sure. I suppose the story we're talking about is that the BSR has seen record Gateway 2 determinations to November, which is fantastic news all around, really, to get projects up and running. 272 decisions across all application types were made in the 24th of November. And it's been nearly 600 since the 31st of August. So, fair play for getting these moving, really.
And just on those numbers, that has really ramped up, hasn't it? If you think of 600 to August, and then and it's almost half again, isn't it? Over the space of a 1 month span is pretty phenomenal work. again, the approval percentage as well, it's 73% of submissions approved, rising to 85% in London. We'll talk more about later on, but given discussions you and I have had about housing policy in the capital and things like that, that's that is encouraging, isn't it? Again, I was very, very cynical when he'd come out with that noise about clearing the backlog by the end of this year, but starting to become a believer, dare I say. That's what the November and December numbers look like. But on that basis, if that pace can be can continue, that's a little bit stultified, a bit stunned. That's it's really, really impressive work.
Yeah, and it's not that we want to find any negatives in this, but it's hard to see any negatives. Proof's in the pudding, isn't it? And when these projects get off the ground and up and running, but there isn't really a negative. You'd presume that they've changed processes, either through more employment or through the way they're doing it, or more efficient systems, or however.
I think combination thereof from what they've said. They make reference in a lot of the press that's out there. Construction Inquirer have been all over this, as have Construction News.
Yeah.
Mr. Rowe kept sort of back referencing this innovation unit that they've put in place, which I think it's a combination of all the things that you've just mentioned there. And whatever that magical mix is, it seems like it's absolutely working. Again, there's a very sort of hot off the press news. There was a pretty sizable project this morning that a 150 home co-living scheme in Hackney that Morrow, the brand behind that, and that's gone through in 13 weeks, which is I think it's a new record for a development of that size. So yeah, if that's been one of the corks in the bottle, so to speak, has been that demand has been in pipeline. It's just been a case of getting that through. We've spoken before about there shouldn't be this diametric opposition between building safely and building quickly. Then those two things should be compatible. This feels like, I know we always try and look for the positives on this podcast, but genuinely, I think is really, really positive news. I mean, one assumes that the reason for this marked increase isn't because people are kind of turning a blind eye to things. I think that it's probably a combination of, again, this innovation unit, better process, better brief. I suspect probably in some of the things that have been kicked back to applicants previously, there's now better information going into planning applications in the first place, and more systemized approach to the way that things are being submitted. But that's on the back all around.
It's that feedback loop as well, isn't it? So not only do the people that are submitting their applications are getting better and tighter and more on the mark with what they're looking for, but the process in approving them is getting better as they learn new ways of actually approving these things, and then that goes back into the market and people learn, and so it's a really good cycle of improvement. There was one statement on specification online. It wasn't a quote. It's just how they wrote it, which I thought kind of hit the nail on the head. So BSR's operational team's direct engagement with applicants and regulatory partners, along with its ongoing plan to address individual blockers, continues to see cases closed at a significant rate. And it's all just like really, really good signs that they're doing the right things.
Yeah, for certain. I think a lot of positives to be taken. I mean, we haven't really touched on it after focusing so much on the budget last week. There was an awful lot in there from a house building perspective to cheer, not least on kind of end client confidence. But it's another one of those blockers. And again, if I'm going to reserve my cynicism in much the same way that I perhaps should have done for Andy Rowe with his proclamations about clearing that backlog. The government have sent judges over the course of the next 5 years, and it'll be because of the changes we're making to building regs. It will be at the back end that picks up. Maybe that's also true. This does feel like a pretty significant step. One of the things that I was going to say, one of my hypotheses, and just to reference AI because we seem to do every episode. We were talking about. I had a conversation with a couple of friends of mine that are main contractors about various frameworks and some of the pressures. They were talking about one of their concerns was that people will use large language models, ChatGPT, Claude, etc., to kind of standardize their tender submissions under the various frameworks, and therefore those approving would have an easier time in the information coming in is standardized, but a harder time sort of making a direct comparison between bids because they're effectively become homogenized
Yeah.
quite a bit. And part of me wonders again that standardization of data going in, whether AI is playing a role in some of this,
Mm.
that some of the corrective measures that people may have made in their sort of submissions for approval. Yeah, the system's becoming smarter, people becoming more au fait with using them, etc. That maybe that's one of these additional factors, but pure speculation, of course. But yeah, whatever is working, yeah, keep doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Keep it up. Absolutely. Um, yeah. Do you want to, I don't know, change the mood a little bit now?
Well, yeah. Well, if that's one of, again, there was a great quote I heard a couple of weeks back on a podcast called Two Bobs that I love, which is the reward you get for solving a problem is then getting to solve the next problem. So if we have solved the problem of Gateway 2 within planning regs, then we're going to need people to start to build these things. And I think, in fairness, I've seen reports from the likes of Turner and Townsend and others saying that they're advising their clients, when you get approval, get moving, because all that's going to start to happen now is that demand for labour is going to increase. Therefore, cost for labour is going to increase, and so on. And yeah, it does feel like that's one bit solved onto the next bit. Again, I'll declare an interest because I was actually very, very proud to have been asked to be involved in this. But there was a huge set of policy recommendations that have come out from the think tank, the Centre for Social Justice. They just released their report, Skills to Build, which in total has 26 different recommendations on things that government and industry could and should be implementing in order to solve the skills problem. We spoken last week about college course uptake, to the point of that, starting to sort of max out, which again is a problem, but it's an encouraging sign that level of demand is there. It kind of needs to be. We've spoken about some of the reports from industry on the surveying side of things and others, and again, pleasing to see that in the budget last week as well, that additional provision there. There's a couple of stats here, to my shame, as someone that takes a real interest in skills gap and the sector's ability to recruit, but we've got 500,000 fewer workers than we had in 2008. We've got a quarter of the workforce gone that were there sort of pre-pandemic and COVID. We've tripled the number of over 65s in the industry. 1 in 3 of people working in the sector now are over 50. And the average age of construction sector worker by 2030, which is only around the corner, is predicted to be just over 46. So we've really got a job to do. And again, within the report, the Centre for Social Justice, this could rise to as high as 1 million, but their conservative estimate is 239,000 workers needed by 2030 in order for us to hit that much vaulted 1.5 million homes target. So yeah, sorry to dampen any enthusiasm generated by that. But we've got to front up to these things. The first step to solving any kind of issue is to be aware of the scale of what it is that we're dealing with. And when we've spoken enough times, if I want to go glass half full on, the size of the potential opportunity, we've spoken about it several times, that 1.5 million homes is millions of lives changed by access to decent housing, and what that means for people's sort of life chances. So yeah, it's not just doing this for and not that it would be a bad thing anyway, but we're not just talking about these things from a purely economic standpoint. There is a real societal benefit to having delivered on this stuff. So yeah, I'd advise, again, I can declare my interest. I was one of the people that was interviewed as part of the process that the team went through to pull this together. But yeah, there's some pretty solid recommendations in there for government and for sector to consider adopting. But have you had a chance to have a sort of dive into this yet?
So the news story, yeah. The Skills to Build, no. But there is a link in the show notes for anyone that is interested in that. Check it out and let us know what you think. Trying to see some positives in this one. I'll be the Max to your Grinch on this particular topic. But the one shining light, if you can call it a shining light, really, is that it seems that direct employed staff are declining faster than self-employed. and if you want to see, and I'm really really clouds, silver lining, straws, trying to really hold on to them here, but we've got a load of self-employed people, skilled, passionate about what they do in the main, that are in the industry,
Mm.
and we should be looking after those people in whatever way we can to keep
Yeah.
them in the industry, and for them to build, if they want to, excuse the pun, but build on their company, grow their company, or just stay as a self-employed sole trader. It's like that they need these. They don't need any friction in their lives to help the industry get going.
Yeah,
So that
completely.
is my kind of one shining light. But I mean, it's yeah, bringing it back down to reality. A 24-year low. It takes us back to roughly, without splitting hairs slash years, roughly when I joined the industry, there or thereabouts. And I'm roughly you'd be the same.
Mm.
And skill shortages have always been an issue, um, since I can remember, and that just highlights it. But it seems like we're restarting back again, and trying to pick the industry up from those skills. But like I said, there's positives in people coming through, which we can't forget. But again, it's making sure that they have that pathway, they have that gateway into the industry, whether it's self-employment, whether it's getting employed by X, Y, and Z, regardless of the size of the business, making sure they have that gateway into it. That's the next step for me, really.
Yeah, for certain. I think one of the things that I like, again, once you get into the guts of the report, I mean, there's 26 different recommendations to be picked through there. Um, there's not one, to your point, Peter, that there's not one linear path that is kind of held up as
Mm.
this is the route into sector, or this should be the route into sector. There is kind of thought for to where the need is, and then how you're going to find those. So it's not just as straightforward as young person goes to college, does apprenticeship, and therefore enters sector. There are recommendations across the piece for how you get people from different works, and how you retain people as well. I think
Mhm.
that's one of the key things, is that this isn't about demonizing those of a certain age profile that exists within the sector. It's just noting that we are going to have a problem if people start to retire or exit sector en masse.
Yeah.
But again, it's not as straightforward as just reach young people and have them join sector, although that makes the most sense. There are kind of recommendations that cover the piece. Because I in trying to be less grinchy, I'd looked at those headline stats on we're at a record point now in terms of a record low rather of construction sort of percentage makeup of the overall workforce. I was like, well, is that a technology thing? Is that not just AI necessarily,
Mm.
but workflows being modernized, and we've spoken about digitization generally in the construction space for some time. Is it just that we need fewer people now to undertake certain roles? And
Mhm.
clearly, once you get into the numbers, that maybe that's part of the picture, but it's much bigger than that. We've spoken for a while,
Yeah.
particularly on that central employment model. And I know it's something that the offsite manufacturers and others have been talking about for some time, that if you are going to be a central employer and have a consistent workforce, you need surety and you need foresight on that pipeline of work coming through. Which is where I guess it dovetails with that the first story that we've got there. The demand is in the system. If that's now starting to improve in terms of pace of conversion, hopefully, not only does that give end clients confidence to release funds. I know for all of my criticisms of them, central government are doing a good job as client at the minute, but it's that private, particularly in housing, that private revenue that needs to be unlocked in order to really get things moving there. You need foresight on what's coming down the track there to be able to forecast and staff up accordingly. And hopefully, the report is solid anyway, and I think adopting a lot of the recommendations there can't hurt.
Yeah.
But wouldn't it be great to have that happen within a wider kind of ecosystem that is also improving and giving people more sight and more confidence to be able to employ and be sure that there is a role that they're creating for someone that is viable in the long term. So yeah, there you go. I've maybe turned around some of my grinchiness at the end of that.
There you go. It's like a Christmas movie.
But no, it's really, again, I'm biased. I think it's a really great report, and I think if you've an interest in employment or skills gap, then yeah, there will be something in there that I think you will latch onto, and you will take some of the recommendations away from. So yeah, as Peter says, link in the show notes. Go and access that at your leisure.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, on that topic, in terms of and it's all linked, isn't it? In terms of employment, skill shortages, projects getting moving along. There's one huge project that seems to have been given the thumbs up.
Yeah, I love, we'll unpack all of this. I love this for a lot of reasons, but thematically, if the overarching theme of today is getting things moving and, build, baby, build, etc. This Earl's Court development on the site of the former exhibition centre there is absolutely gargantuan, and has received approval. From half of the approval is that the site is so big that it straddles two different local authorities in London. So Hammersmith and Fulham Council have approved it. Kensington and Chelsea, come on guys, let's keep up your end of the bargain. But it's I don't know if you want to get into the detail on the size of the development, Peter, but it's phenomenally big, this one, isn't it?
Yeah, and with these larger projects, it's not going to be ready tomorrow. You're not going to rock Earl's Court tomorrow and have brand shiny new buildings popping up, because this is the full build out is scheduled to be complete by 2041, which I don't want to calculate ages here, but let's just keep it at 2041. It's 10 billion redevelopment, 4,000 homes, 2.5 million square foot of climate innovation workspace, zero carbon energy network, and 20 acres of parks are planned. They've even got one of those twisty slides going on. So I'm all in with that. Yeah, absolutely sold. The first phase, however, let's bring it back. 2030. It's only 5 years for the first phase, which will have 1,300 homes, which in central London is a real positive. Public spaces, cultural venues, and the likes. Basically, a town within that there London. Essentially, that's what they're building.
Yeah.
What are your takeaways from this?
Well, I love it. I mean, I'm a bit of a nerd. I'm a lot of a nerd. It kind of reminds me of the Barbican and what the intent. I don't know how much you know about that development, but the idea with that was that it was going to be kind of an estate that you could live in for life. The mix of provision of various kind of housing and apartment types there, and that theoretically you could go in there as a single person in a one-bed apartment, and then as you meet partner and expand your family and so on, there would be enough space in there and enough different sort of housing types for you to be able to stay there. Cultural venue, again, there's another kind of comparison there, but this feels like that there's been provision made for community building. Again, it's something that we've spoken about, where people, and I think rightly on occasion, criticize the concept of urban regeneration and what it eventually kind of has become in a lot of cases, that people think about shifting units and they think about sort of maximizing value and then land speculation rather than building places that people will ultimately live in. Back to that point earlier on what 1.5 million homes actually means, maybe given its scale and its ambition. But yeah, this feels like a properly considered, community development, which is great. Massive outlay financially, which again, good news for the sector, creates jobs, and we know the impact of construction to the local economy that it serves, which again is really impressive. The thing that stuck out the most for me is that for that outlay on 10 billion, that just how much this is going to generate financially for the local economy. It's something that we don't really speak about enough in terms of buyback, but there's a research piece from Arup suggesting that this will put 3 billion a year back into the UK economy and support 23,500 jobs nationwide. Which is crucial. Again, there can kind of be that us and them. We spoke about the mayor Sadiq Khan's kind of policy, which is London centric versus the rest of the UK and so on. And that sometimes happens with devolution, that things become by definition segmented and we can start to point at one region versus another. But I don't on the face of what's being presented, I don't think you can fault this. The environmental impacts, is there running on zero carbon energy, as you say. The sort of commercial impact on the local and the sort of national supply chain. And again, that sense of community there. It's there's a lot to like about this, I think.
Yeah, I think there is. There's one fly in the ointment. So you've
I'll
got
go on.
3 billion a year injected into the UK economy. Fantastic jobs, thumbs up compared to the story that we previously covered about
Mhm.
skill shortages. But the traffic's just going to be a nightmare. Like, just that's going to be the overriding thing, isn't it? It's brilliant, this, but the traffic's a nightmare.
I have some good news for you there, mate. London,
All right.
pretty well connected by public transport. I think they're going to be just. In fact, yeah, just don't drive if you're you're considering living or working down in that particular part of London. Just you'll find a tube, you'll find a bus. Yeah, don't stress it.
Don't worry about it. I jest, and it's only positives can come from something like this, and seeing regenerations in the capital or in any city. It makes you a little bit impatient for it to happen and see it happen.
Yeah.
Because it feels a million miles away. But like I said to my wife yesterday, it'll be Christmas 2026 before you know it. So yes. Yeah, I know. There's one for people that are listening till the very end of this podcast to consider. But yeah, it's really good news story, and a great way to sort of end our three headlines, I think.
I think so. So what would be your takeaway then across those three?
Oh wow! For me, I think it's. I'm looking at these with a typical marketing head on, and looking at how, from a building safety perspective, and how they're moving these projects through that chain now, and the learnings and the process, and making it cyclical, and making it faster, but without the reduction in quality, is something that we can all learn from, particularly within construction, where it's so diverse and so the supply chain is just so mixed, and a combination of everything. I think that in a case study, if it continues the way it's going, it could be like a shining light and a really good exemplar for how things should be done.
Yeah, no, I think absolutely good shout. I think for me, curiosity is good, questioning is good. I think a degree of cynicism, every so often is healthy, but I think it also does us good sometimes to kind of suspend our disbelief and to admit when we're wrong occasionally, as I absolutely have been with the Gateway 2 stuff. It seems, and maybe I'm wrong on that basis on the 1.5 million homes thing. Maybe the same logic applies, and therefore things like Earl Court, etc. Give a bit more renewed faith that if we can get the investment piece right, if we can get the talent piece right, and the skills that we need, and the labour provision in place, then yeah, maybe we do stand a fighting chance of a good couple of years ahead of us for the sector. So yeah, I a lot to we're not home and hosed. We're not done, but yeah, I think there's a lot to be excited about.
Yeah, absolutely. Great way to end it, eh?
Yeah. Thank you for listening to the end.